When one pictures a city, one pictures glass towers, fast cars, and busy people. When one pictures a forest, one sees dark, lush trees, perhaps a stream, and resting animals. The sounds of a city are the sounds of traffic, sirens, and construction. The sounds of a forest are the sounds of birds, wind, and silence. But there is another city. There is another forest. There is the urban forest. There is Bath's community forest. 300 years ago, Bath's new settlers did not think of cities. They did not think of forests. The settlers of Longreach, as Bath was then known, thought of new lands, new opportunities, and new challenges. We can imagine the first visions of the settlers of Longreach through the words of Sarah Orne Jewett. We were standing where there was a fine view of the harbor and its long stretches of shore, all covered by the great army of the pointed firs. Darkly cloaked and standing as if they waited to embark, as we looked far seaward among the outer islands. The trees seemed to march seaward, still, going steadily over the heights and down to the water's edge. These trees marching seaward were opportunities for the settler. Down around Bath on the Kennebec was the country that was destined to become, and indeed to be at the present day, the great center of shipbuilding in Maine. That portion of the river known as Longreach, which was a stretch of 3 miles, unequaled in the world for easily sloping shores on which to lay a keel, and a channel that was wide and deep to receive a launching ship, put Bath out in front. It is claimed with respect to the yards at the north end of the city that more ships have been built on the strip of Bath shorefront than on any other equal area in the world. The early days of Bath were akin to those of other towns all along the shore. It was after the Revolution and in the next century that its name became known all over the seafaring world for the wooden ships of Maine.
The shipbuilding fever from the War of 1812 to the Civil War hit the land of Longreach especially hard. The oaks were unusually tall along the cities, and every man around the bay began turning his trees into ships and turning his farmhands into carpenters and ironworkers. Robert P. Tristan Coffin.
And as the mighty oaks and pointed firs were felled, a city rose. The forest that greeted the first settlers had died. It was lost to the words and memories of history. But a new forest grew, Bath's urban city forest. Tree-lined streets, the Victorian Library Park, the gardens and yards. Just as this new urban forest became familiar and permanent in the mind's eye of the city dweller, it became challenged, not by man's dreams, but by disease. Fred Petchy, who became the city forester in 1942 because, as he tells it, no one else was foolish enough to take the job, tells how the Dutch elm disease changed the face, once again, of Bath's urban forest.
When I get into taking down trees, I get into that part of that time where Dutch elm began to ravage the city. I have taken down, have marked and had taken down up to 150 trees a year on taking elms down. And we would cover the entire city. We would even go down on the waterfront. Every tree that we knew had Dutch elm, we took it down because we were getting help from the state at that time. And we would they would, once you got a tree down and cleaned up, before that they would pay or settle with the city, they wanted to come down and inspect that whole area where you have taken that tree down. They don't want any leaves or bark or wood or anything. It had to be absolutely all cleaned up. You couldn't leave anything around. And the wood was supposed to be dumped and buried or burned. We lost at least 3,500 trees or more, yeah, all over the city. But we took everything down. We didn't. It didn't make no difference how big the tree was. It had to come down if it showed the disease. Right now, I think we've only got. I know of only 4 elm trees in the city that we have. We got one down on Middle Street. There's one on Court Street. There's one on Middle and Oak Street down here. And there's one going out Oak Grove Avenue. I think those are the only 4 elms, I think, that we have in the city.
And the dead tree gives no shelter, the cricket no relief. In 1992, 50 years after Mr. Pecci began as city forester, and 50 years after the onset of the seemingly irreversible devastation of the Dutch elm disease, the Bath City Council determined to reverse the trend and to grow a healthier, more vibrant urban forest for Bath citizens. It established the Bath Community Forestry Committee and set it to work on developing a management plan for the community forest and planting new trees and improving the health of the trees we have. 6,000 street trees were counted. 500 planting sites were identified. Community planting programs have begun, and care of the trees has been promoted. To ensure the vitality of Bath's urban forest, these guidelines should be followed. Consider the mature size of the tree. If the planting location will not sustain the mature tree, do not plant it at all. Plant the right tree in the right location. Watch for overhead wires, sidewalks, and potential damage from the street. Water your tree. Just as your flowers and houseplants draw life from your care, so does your tree. And your tree gives life back to you and the birds and animals we share our city with. Prune your tree. Most city trees need some annual attention to their branches. Prune dead and dying limbs, and prune living limbs to assure healthy, shapely growth for years to come. If these guidelines are followed, the rewards to you and to the city are increase in fair market value of your property by approximately 8 to 10%, wind shelter and air conditioning, air filtering.
A man does not plant a tree for himself. He plants it for posterity.
Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees.
The trees in the streets are old trees, used to living with people, family trees that remember your grandfather's name. Stephen Vincent Benet, John Brown's Body, Book 4.
Bath is fortunate to have a diverse and resuscitated urban forest. Bath's history as a seafaring town, while clearing the wooded shores of the forest, also brought diversity and magic to the urban forest. The Japanese heartnut palm, thought to have been brought to Bath by the world-traveling sea captains. The Camperdown elm, said to be brought to the shores of the Kennebec by an itinerant salesman, spreading these trees as Johnny Appleseed sowed apple trees. Copper beeches, spruces, tulip trees, indeed the common maple and oak, all members of the Bath urban forest, the Bath family of trees.
I don't know if anything is any more beautiful than a tree that is growing in the right place and taken care of. There's just something about it. Trees, they do so many things for you. You know, they cool your house, they clean the air, and there's probably many other things. And who else could make a tree but God? If you're religiously inclined, I think it shows what's in a person's heart when they have feelings for nature, things. Not only the tree, but there are other things in the tree. You know, they're a breeding place for different insects. If the birds live there. And, I don't know. You would go on and on and on to explain why it's nice to have a tree around.